Hi there, I'm 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗀𝗃, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to draw a Japanese umbrella at any angle in Clip Studio Paint. Without further ado, let's begin. The first thing we need to do is draw a perfect circle. To do that, you just hold down Shift and drag, and you will get a perfect circle. If you don't do that, you end up with this sad oval like in the first example, and we don't want that. If you're new to Clip Studio, I designed this tutorial to be somewhat beginner friendly, so I would give it a shot. If you're using a different program, you can adapt this method to whatever program you're using, as long as you know how to match up the features. Now that we have our circle, we're going to visualize it within the structure of the umbrella. So if you look at this diagram here, this circle will become that blue oval on the bottom of the umbrella cone. Now, keep in mind that umbrellas have many spokes. Japanese umbrellas have 30 to 70 spokes. Of course, we're going to go with 30. So, we're going to subdivide this circle into about 30 equal parts. The reason we're subdividing a circle and not an oval is because it is impossible to easily subdivide an oval. My workaround is to subdivide this circle and then transform it using transform functions into an oval. It sounds confusing, but it'll be very simple once we get into it. To start off our subdivision, just make a square or rectangle inside your circle. Make sure each corner of that square is touching a side of the circle. Then put an X in the middle, and the center of that X is the center of the circle. Then we're just going to mark the horizontal and vertical axis. Next, we're going to make two optional brushes. One is going to be a dotted ellipse, which we're going to use to subdivide our circle, and the other one is going to be a fancy square curve brush so that we can make the spokes. If you don't want to use these, simply look up a picture of a dotted circle on the internet. Just make sure it has about 30 dots for the 30 spokes. And if you don't want to use the fancy curve brush, you can just use the regular curve brush as long as you make it thick enough to match whatever thickness of spokes you want. Okay, so let's begin with making these two brushes. We will start with the dotted ellipse brush. Go to the Direct Draw tool underneath the paint bucket. Then click Ellipse. I also underlined the other tools we use. Then click on Brush Shape, that little drop-down menu. Then click Dotted Line. Then click that little wrench below that brush shape menu. Then in the stroke section, click that first option, which is fixed, and set the size to 550. And then the brush size overall is 11.3. So that's how to make the first one, which is a dotted circle brush. And then now we're going to make the second one, which we will use for the spokes later on. So go to the Curve tool, go to Brush Shape again, click Dashed Line this time. Again, click the little wrench. And in the Stroke menu, make the gap narrow, which is that first option, and the Repeat method, the first one, which is called Repeat. And your overall brush size, 5.5. It depends how thick you want your spokes to be. Okay, so now with that circle brush, hold down Shift and make a circle. As you can see at that top junction point, make sure that those two little circles overlap so all the spacing is even. And if you're on a vector layer, rasterize it, or those circles will keep moving around and you don't want that. So now just transform the circle, make it bigger so it fits on your main circle there. And keep a copy of this circle and all its layers in a folder. We will keep going back to it, so make sure you do that. We're now going to transform it and get ready to take a screenshot because you need to remember your transformation settings. Unclick Keep Aspect Ratio, then just change the width and the rotation angle. But again, keep track of those values. Take a picture of them. These are just the two ovals I made. And these are how they ended up. You can copy my settings if you want to make these. So we're just going to mark the center and the sides of those green lines. See those little arrows? I'm going to call that the center side dot. To make the handle lines, you have two options. You can either trace that blue line, that blue shorter axis there. For some reason I find this annoying to do, so I prefer the second method. The second method, you just draw two angled lines using those center side dots, those green dots, and the corner of the square. Make two angled lines like that, and you can just thread the center handle line through that, like so. I just find it easier because it gives a further away point to connect the line to, but both will give you the exact same line, so just do whatever you think is easiest. So now we're gonna draw the cone of the umbrella. For this I use the curve tool. So pick how tall you want the cone to be, then drag that point to the center side dot, that green dot, and make the curve. To make the curve, you just move the mouse away, the line will curve, then just click and you will set the curve. So again, choose how tall you want it to be, drag that line to that center side dot, the green dot, and make the curve. This one is the same thing, but there's a bit extra steps to keep in mind. So you drag that green dot to however tall you want your umbrella cone to be, but then when you curve it, you need to make sure you trace over the ellipse. So there's no guesswork involved. You're literally just going to drag a straight line from that center side dot to however tall you want your umbrella to be, and then just trace over that ellipse to get your cone. Don't make the umbrella too tall because it's in perspective, and so it's being foreshortened and it's not that tall of a cone to begin with. And we'll show you how to do that first umbrella, that first angle, after we make the handle cylinders. So that's both of the cones completed. And now we're going to do the handles. To do that, go back to that original circle and just get the outline and the X. Then we're going to transform that using the settings we saved earlier. So just plug in those same settings with keep aspect ratio turned off. Plug in the same settings. See how it lines up? Then shrink it. So keep aspect ratio should be on. Then put in 2 into the width or height field. And then it will automatically shrink it down to 2%. And the bottom part of the cylinder is exactly the same. We're just shrinking it down to 3%. And you're going to place those on the center line of the handle. So that little X goes on the center line. Just like that. And then you're going to put 2 lines connecting them to make the cylinder. So now you'll notice that the points of the cones do not match the shape because the handle is there and the top of the umbrella should be curved around the handle. So we have to fix that. So we're just going to erase that little part which intersects with the handle and redraw it while keeping in mind what perspective the handle is in. So in this example, it's just straight there. This one is going to be very, very slightly curved. And there you go. Now we're going to talk about that first example. It seems more ambiguous, but it's actually pretty simple. Just pick whatever point you want to be the top of the cone. Keep in mind that a little bit of the handle sticks out with the top of the cone, but you're in perspective, and because of foreshortening, that space is going to be very short, but it really doesn't matter. You can put it wherever you want. I'm drawing a few here to show you. You can put it wherever you want. And then just make sure you match the curve of the handle. There you go. Now we're going to erase the parts of the cylinder that are hidden. In this case, we're also going to erase that little part above the line we just drew because it's covered by the paper and we won't need it as a guide later on. So there you go. For this one, same thing. We're going to erase the parts of the cylinder we won't see, like so. I'll also show you what it looks like when we erase the parts hidden behind the paper. Like so, but for now keep that visible because we're going to use it as a guide. Same thing with this one. I'll show you what it looks like when we erase the parts hidden by the paper, but for demo purposes I'm going to keep that visible to use it as a guide. Okay, so the next step is to make these little ovals. So these little ovals are the bases of the spoke cones, which are inside the umbrella. So as you can see there, those colored ovals, that's what we're making. So return back to that original circle. This time keep the dots. Then transform it using your settings. Keep aspect ratio should be off. See how it lines up? I'm just doing both of mine. And then we're gonna turn on keep aspect ratio and shrink them down to 30%. So just put 30 inside that field. Now we're gonna move these little ovals inside the main umbrellas. This first one's just for example purposes because obviously it wouldn't be visible, but to visualize it, that's how we're nestling them in. That one, you would just line up to the sides there. The next one, same thing, nestle it inside the cone. Make sure the X on that small ellipse, the center of that X lines up to the center of the handle line, that red line. And for the first one, it's a bit more ambiguous, but I found a rule of thumb. So it's good to place it about 1/3 from the top of the umbrella cone to the base of the umbrella cone, which is that center red dot there. So you can just approximate it. No one will know if it's not exact. And next, we're going to add these little cylinders. So you can see, there they are. And these are where that interior spoke cone attaches to. And we're going to place those little cylinders on top of that red dot, or the center of that large ellipse, the base of the umbrella cone. And this is just how I've chosen to place it for this tutorial. You could really place that little cylinder wherever. You can see that in this tutorial, we're placing it right at the base of the umbrella cone, so that when you view it from the side, you would not see that spoke cone. It's completely hidden behind the paper of the umbrella. But this isn't the only way to do it. You can also place it below the base of the umbrella cone, in which case from the side view you would see the spoke cone beneath the paper. It really depends on personal preference. If you're trying to make a specific design for an umbrella, and let's say you're making a manga and you draw it from many angles, it's just good to remember where you placed it relative to that center red dot, and then you can redraw it in any angle and have the same design. Now we're going to mark the point where all the spokes meet. For the main part of the umbrella, they will all meet at about the center of the top of the umbrella cone. So this point will fall on that center line for the handle. Just approximate about the center of the umbrella cone. Next, we will mark the point for the interior spoke cone. So that sits on top of that small cylinder. Just approximate about the center of it. Again, it will fall on that middle handle line. Refer to the visual here. And those are all the points marked. They don't need to be perfect because they will be covered by all the spokes converging. So, to make the spokes, what you do is you use the curve tool we made. You just drag a line from that meeting point to the outer rim dot, and then curve it so it meets the corresponding dot on the inner rim. So again, you will drag a straight line from that meeting point to the outer dot, then curve that line so it intersects with the corresponding smaller dot. It sounds confusing, but once you do it, you really get the hang of it, because you're just making that straight line there between those two points, and then just curving it to intersect that little oval dot. And when you do it this way, there's no guesswork. Everything is regular and you don't have to worry about it or guesstimate anything. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You'll see some of mine don't intersect the dots completely, but it's all good. Also, as you notice, I'm ending them past the boundary of the umbrella because the spokes will poke out. And you can just trim those later if they're all over the place. It doesn't need to be perfect right out the bat. And this is just the full thing. This one's a little confusing. So I color coded those small dots that correspond with the top spokes. So on the interior oval, color code the dots that correspond with the top spokes. It's just the ones that go between the cone lines. I made those orange. That's to visualize. See, all those top spokes will go through those small little orange dots. So once you have that, you just do the same exact thing. Drag a line from the meeting point to the outer rim dot, and then curve it to meet one of those small orange dots in the interior oval. And those little sides can be a little hard, but just do your best. It doesn't need to be perfect. No one will notice. So there you go. So make this top part its own layer. And we will hide this layer to do the bottom spokes. And because we're going to hide it, I color coded all the dots it intersected with just so I know which ones they are and I'm not confused once the spokes disappear when we do the other stage. So just mark those off. So now we're going to hide those spokes. There we go. And then we're just going to do the same thing. This time, you're only connecting purple dots because all the other ones belong to the top spokes, the ones on the outside. Now we're doing the bottom spokes. So just drag the line from the meeting point to the purple dot on the outer rim, and then curve it to meet the corresponding purple dot on the inner ellipse. So just drag the line from the meeting point to the large dot on the outer ellipse and curve it so it intersects with the small dot on the inner ellipse. Those spokes which are more towards the sides, the ones that are smushed together, those can be a little tricky, but as long as you make the ends which stick out, those little protruding ends beyond the dots, long enough, you should be fine. The reason for that is because when we erase the part hidden behind the paper, you want those to be visibly sticking out. But again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine certainly aren't perfect, so just do your best and then you'll get the bottom row finished. So now we're doing just that. We're just getting rid of the hidden areas with a layer mask. I like using the layer mask because then you can go back to it if you need to edit a line, but you can also just erase it. Now we're all ready to just show that top layer again. And then once they're both together, then the main part of this umbrella will have its spokes completed. Again, you can take the time to trim the outer edges of the umbrella just to make sure those little spokes which are sticking out are even. This is just a quick recap of that. This is the final one. Again, I color coded the top dots on that small ellipse which correlate to the top spokes. Then I do the top spokes on its own layer. Then do the bottom spokes on its own layer. Then mask off the hidden parts. And then we just show both at once. And there you go. And this third one, you just go around. Okay, so now we're gonna do the interior spoke cone. So start from that meeting point at the top of the small cylinder and go out to the interior rim of dots, like so. I curve these by eye, but you can also just keep them straight. It depends on the design you want. You'll see in that picture there, these spokes will converge with the other spokes. And then now this is the full version, just sped up. For the middle example, do the top layer, then make a new layer and do the bottom layer. This is kind of a niche tip, but if you want to draw in the woodblock print style, only draw the top layer of the spoke cone and then you can fill it in with a solid color. You don't need to draw the bottom layer of the spoke cone because when you fill it in with the solid color, it will be hidden anyway. Okay, so now we're just going to erase all the hidden spokes which are hidden behind the paper of the umbrella or behind the handle. It's very easy to miss a spot, so when you go to color, just keep an eye out for any stray spokes that should be hidden. Next, take your curve tool and all you're going to do is connect the dots. And we're just going to go around and you can curve these inwards a little bit. Now I replace those interior dots with just a clean copy. You can use your transform settings you saved to get that. Now we're going to add more decorative elements. First I just made that little cylinder 3D. It's kind of like a column shape, the top of a column. Then you can get more copies of your main ellipse there. I shrunk these to 30, 20, and 10% and just nestle them into those cones. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then you can draw little X's on that middle stripe for a little design there. And you can color that one by the handle a different color. Same thing, you can shrink the ellipses. These are shrunk down to 70%, but you can do anything. And just use those indentations as a guide to just nestle them onto the umbrella. Then you get a stripe. These are stripes on the handle. Just follow the shape of the handle to draw those. And for these little cones on top, I just freehanded those. And now we have our finished umbrella structures. They look like something from a textbook. I don't know what's going on with the color scheme here, so let's fix that with just flat colors and gradations and subtle texture, and you will get this. As you can see, I chose a very saturated color palette, so they look like very dangerous pieces of candy, but you can do whatever you want for the design. There's plenty of great references on the internet, so you can have a traditional feel, or you can just go crazy and do whatever you want. I've seen people put tassels on the ends of the spokes, things like that, or sometimes the umbrellas are clear. There's all types of fun designs. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, I would appreciate it if you liked, commented, and even subscribed. I will be making more in the near future. My next one is going to be how to pattern clothing, and if you have any other ideas, please let me know. I will put it on my to-do list. Usually I make speed paint videos. Those are fully subtitled with relaxing music, and I go through my process and also talk about fun things like Japanese history and Vocaloid and things like that. I appreciate you watching and making it to the end.